Thank you for watching this Dear Systems tutorial. In this video, we'll cover the use of simple purchase orders. First, let's start with a brief overview of the purchase module. The purchase module allows you to create and send purchase orders to your suppliers, receive stock into your warehouse, process invoices, credit notes, and attach manual journals to your suppliers' invoices. The purchase module is the first module available in the navigation toolbar and contains some additional features. You can do the following. Create a simple purchase order, perfect for most regular purchases. Create an advanced purchase order, which is used when you're expecting multiple invoices or receipt of goods over time. Create a service purchase order, which is the same as a simple purchase, but enables you to raise a purchase that contains no physical stock to be received. Create credit note purchases to credit a value from a supplier. Create new supplier records. Add bulk payments to suppliers. Reorder and reorder backordered stock. And you can also see a list of your existing purchase orders, suppliers, and supply deposits. To initiate a new purchase, you need to go to New, Simple Purchase. The purchase screen is split into several parts. The first section is the document header, where the supplier information will be displayed. This includes their address and contact details, their tax information, and some other fields that we'll look at in just a moment. The next section is where the order lines will be added. These make out the main part of the purchase order. In the next section, you can include any additional costs. This can include any other costs such as shipping, freight, direct labor, or insurance. And finally, there is a section for deposits and prepayments, which we'll be covering in another video. First, we need to start by filling in the supplier details in the document header. There are a couple of different ways to select your supplier. First, you can scroll through the drop-down list. Keep in mind that if you have a long list of suppliers, they may not all be visible simultaneously. If the supplier record has not been created yet, you can add them by selecting the plus button. This will open up a dialog box for some basic information about the supplier. Enter the information and proceed. Or you can type in the supplier name to find the one you're looking for. Selecting the supplier will cause many fields of the document header to be pre-populated by the information that has already been entered against the supplier. Note, to view the supplier record from the document header, hover your mouse over the supplier field, then click the supplier name. It is highly recommended to enter as much information during setup as possible, which can be done in bulk using CSV templates. Please take a look at the suppliers video for more information about uploading supplier information in bulk. If, however, the pre-populated information is not correct for the supplier, it can be amended in the document header. Moving on, you can now select an input method. This refers to the order of your workflow below. For example, when invoice first is selected, after completing the purchase order, you'll need to complete the purchase invoice before receiving stock into the warehouse. If stock first is selected, you can see that the order of the two steps changes below. Now, after completing the purchase order, you'll be taken to the stock receiving stage before being able to complete the invoice. Terms are payment terms and can be set up in three ways: via settings, reference books, and payment terms, in your accounting application and then synced into Dear, or they can be added on the go by selecting the plus button. You also have the option of including a required buy date for the supplier, which will assist you when viewing purchase orders considered overdue. In each purchase order, you can change the tax rule or inventory account in the document header if required. The next option is blind receipt. This is only used in cases where there's no purchase order formally submitted to the supplier. For example, if you've just received an invoice or if the order was made directly over the phone without submitting an actual purchase order. Clicking blind receipt will remove the order tab from the bottom navigation panel. For this video, we're not going to use this feature. Next, you can select a date for the purchase order as well as a location that the goods will be delivered to. If you operate out of multiple locations, you can select a different location than your default location, and of course, make sure that the correct shipping address is included. You can amend the shipping address in the document header, however it's recommended that any such amendments take place in the settings. The last part of the document header is comments, which can be used for your notes and references. And an important thing to emphasize is that comments are searchable. So if you include reference codes or other key business data, you can use it to quickly locate this purchase order in the future. Once you've filled in all the required fields in the document header, you can begin to add items to your purchase order. Across the top of the next section, you can see the stages of the purchase order workflow. Purchase order, process invoice, receive stock, credit notes, unstock, and manual journals. To add product lines to your purchase order, click plus or add more items. You can select items in 3 ways, either from the drop-down menu, again keeping in mind that if you have a large product list, not all of your products will be visible, by typing in an individual product name or SKU, or you can add new items on the go by clicking the Add New Item, and again a dialog box will open where you'll be prompted to enter some information about the product before you continue. In this case, we'll just select an item from the drop-down menu. Note, to view more detailed information about products you've added to your PO, hover over the product name. A pop-up window will display a summary of the product info and available stock. To navigate to the product's page, select its name in the pop-up window. Once a product has been added, you can enter or alter the information into the following fields. Add an optional inline comment if needed. A supplier SKU code where their SKU differs from your own. The quantity of the item that you'll be ordering. And of course, the price. The price can be pre-populated with one of 2 options, either a fixed supplier price or the last supplier price that was used. This functionality is covered in the product management and supplier videos. You can then enter a discount percentage that are applied to the individual product lines. And finally, you can also change the tax rule if necessary. This functionality is very useful when you have an order that's made up of both taxable and non-taxable items. Repeat this process for as many product lines as necessary to complete your order. The next feature is the Verify Order function, which can be used to compare the ordered item quantities with their inventory stock levels. Once selected, Deal will take a moment to compare the quantities in your PO with your inventory movements. Depending on the number of items in your PO, this process may take a while, so be patient. Based on this comparison, you can avoid double handling and decide whether to keep an item on the PO or not. Click Back to Order to go back to the PO screen. You can then alter the quantities of the items you've decided to remove. You can add additional costs to the order. As mentioned previously, additional costs are service type items such as freight, insurance, or shipping. By clicking the plus button or add more items, you can select from the drop-down menu any service item you previously entered into Deal inventory. Or you can add a new item. As before, a dialog box will open and you'll be prompted to enter in some details before you can continue. In this case, we'll add international shipping to our order. You can add a reference if applicable, a quantity of the good, a price, any discount, and change the tax rule if necessary. In the Purchase Order Memo field, you can add in any notes that you want to be populated into the final document. You are also able to view the before tax quantity of the order, the total tax payable, and the final total. Note, if you're raising a purchase in a foreign currency, you'll also see subtotaling comparing the supplier currency and your local currency at the time. The final section is for deposits and prepayments, which we'll cover in a separate video. Once you've completed your purchase order, you can authorize it ready for the purchase order to be issued. If you're not ready to authorize it, you can save it as a draft and come back to it later. Once the purchase order has been authorized, you have the option to email it directly to your supplier or print a copy. Like most Deal inventory documents, these are produced in PDF format, so they can be easily saved to your computer. And that concludes this video on simple purchase orders.